San Francisco revisited. After more than 10 hours of flying, my waist was already stiff. No one came to pick me up, so I had to drag my 2 pieces of luggage to the hotel by taxi. My husband's office in San Francisco is in the city center, so we booked a hotel at the nearby Hyatt. It was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we arrived at the hotel. I quickly washed away all the dust on my body. Unexpectedly, I took a shower and washed away all the fatigue. I originally wanted to take a rest and take a nap in the hotel, but now I am in high spirits. I decided to walk around the hotel first and do some activities on my own. Passing by the eye-catching Apple store, a few steps away, I arrived at Union Square, which is said to be the 3rd largest shopping district in the United States. However, as I walked along, I saw no bustling people on the road. I just felt deserted. I saw those people on the way. There are homeless people on every street. No wonder my best friend who lives in Silicon Valley once reminded me that it is best not to walk alone on the street. The most famous thing in Union Square is the towering Dewey Monument, which is dedicated to Admiral George Dewey to commemorate his victory in the Battle of Manila Bay during the Spanish-American War. The statue holds a trident representing Dewey and a wreath representing McKinley. Legend has it that Alma D. Brettfull Spreckles, a socialite and philanthropist at the time, served as the model for the statue. But a 1902 article detailing the monument's construction stated that the model was someone else. The statue is on top of a tall monument. I can't see the details clearly, but the woman standing on one foot gives people a sense of sanctity. There is a tram stop near the square, although I didn't jump on it and take a ride. It was already a unique sight to hear the clanging sounds ringing from time to time, and watch the old-style carriages full of passengers passing by. Landscape. Near the tram stop, there was a black man performing a one-man band on the street. Although he sang, played and danced just a little bit, he added a bit of vitality to the less lively street. After walking around for almost an hour, I gradually felt a slight chill. I wonder if the residual heat I brought from Hong Kong has gradually dissipated, or if San Francisco is not as warm as I expected. At this time, my husband called me. It turned out that he had returned to the hotel, so I walked back quickly, against the cool breeze blowing towards me among the high-rise buildings. Although we are already an old couple, we have been working from home every day since the COVID-19. We have been seeing each other for 24 hours a day, and we are not used to seeing each other again. Even if we are separated for more than 10 hours, we will be together again. It's also time to celebrate. I thought it would be easy to find a restaurant in the city center. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be difficult to find a restaurant that was not closed or still open. Within walking distance of the hotel in this downtown San Francisco area, finally, we walked 2 or 3 streets before we saw a Thai restaurant. Finally, we had the cheapest dinner in this food stall-like restaurant. We couldn't finish it, so my husband ordered a few cartons. Pack up all the leftovers. I was confused when I looked at it. The food in this restaurant was really average. Could it be that my husband was afraid that he would be hungry in the middle of the night and take it back to the hotel for a midnight snack? Before I could ask, my husband put the leftovers into 2 plastic bags and said proudly to me, "Look, this way I can give it to homeless people." It turns out that my husband packed the food because he wanted to improve the food for the homeless. Never would I have thought that when I walked out of the restaurant and placed the plastic bags in front of the homeless people stationed at 2 different street corners. They didn't even bother to raise their heads and pointed to the old cardboard boxes at their feet. I dare you to think that what I want is not pad thai fans, but dollar bills that can be counted. Although I have never seen it with my own eyes, it is said that homeless people in China use WeChat to collect money. These American homeless people are too unprogressive and do not keep pace with the times. Got it? As soon as it got dark, the road felt even deserted. Fortunately, we were both wearing leather jackets, but the cold night wind made us hug each other and walk quickly to the hotel. I originally thought we could have fun together in San Francisco for 2 days, but I didn't expect that he would still have to have a meeting the next day. I had no choice but to be a lone ranger and explore the largest Chinatown in the United States and the famous Fisherman's Wharf. I visited San Francisco's Chinatown more than 20 years ago when I was still living in London. At that time, I could only travel on a budget, so Chinatown became a blessed place where I could have a little luxury and not feel too painful when I had a dental ceremony. In my memory, Chinatown was bustling with people and Chinese restaurants were everywhere. I remember there was a photo of me holding a scallion pancake in one hand and a cup of hot sweet soy milk in the other. At that time, I was munching on the soy milk. Scallion pancakes make me feel full of happiness. Today, more than 20 years later, walking in the deserted Chinatown, not to mention not seeing a few locals, tourists are even rarer. Today, I have given up scallion pancakes because they are all starch, and soy milk has also become sugar-free. Suddenly, I lament that the source of happiness in my youth is now being avoided. What's even more deplorable is that there were not many restaurants open while walking in Chinatown. Only some shops selling souvenirs to make money from tourists were open. But without tourists, how could there be business and how could one make money? I really feel sorry for these shop owners. Chinatown can be said to be run from beginning to end by a main street, but it has such a single location and direction. After I turned a corner on a branch street, I lost my direction and didn't know how to go back. Fortunately, I had a mobile phone navigation. This prevents me from spending most of the day wandering around Chinatown like a headless fly. My husband has always teased me about my non-existent sense of direction, because if it didn't exist, I might still have a 25% chance of guessing right. But my self-proclaimed sense of direction allows me to get away with it in unfamiliar environments. The success rate of getting lost dropped to less than 10%. So my husband concluded that if I accept that I have no sense of direction at all, it will definitely reduce the chance of me getting lost. After walking out of the deserted Chinatown, which was a bit disappointing to me, I decided to go to the famous Fisherman's Wharf. I guessed that it must be very crowded and lively. After taking an Uber there, I felt that the popularity was indeed hotter than Chinatown, but it was different from what I imagined. There is still some gap in the hustle and bustle. Fortunately, the sun was shining brightly that day, and the clear blue sky and white clouds, the blue sea in the distance, and the seagulls swooping down from midair from time to time formed a dynamic oil painting. The huge seafood sign can turn any tourist's photo in front of it into a simple and clear postcard of a visit here. That day, there was a black uncle not far from the sign who was enjoying himself by singing and knocking. No one offered him any reward. I guess other tourists, like me, thought his performance was too ordinary. I walked to the seaside railing and looked at the sea. On the left-hand side was the World War II Battleship Museum. Not only was there a long decommissioned battleship moored on the sea, but there was also a simple museum on the shore. However, I was more interested in the mechanical museum next to it, because there are more than 300 antique game consoles on display inside. It turned out that there was a collector named Edward who was born in 1922 and died in 2004. He started collecting various toys and game consoles at the age of 11. This hobby gradually helped him increase his income. He had to interrupt this hobby to protect his family and country during World War I in 1946. He returned home from the war and started a paint business. But his hobby of collecting various machines, especially game consoles, was rekindled during his lifetime. He collected more than hundreds of various machines and earned profits through transactions or exchange for items he likes more. When I walked into this museum, I felt like I had entered a time shuttle, sending me to a world that I was completely unfamiliar with. I was surrounded by various antique game consoles, some of which looked a little scary, and most of which were intimidating to me, who doesn't like playing games. For people, it's just weird, but there are still many tourists who are interested in exchanging coins at the counter to play these antique game consoles. Walking out of the museum, not far along the seaside, you can see a white arch built on a platform extending over the sea. This arch was built in 1914. It was used to transport railway carriages to passing ships, but it was already long gone, abandoned. It is said that standing on the side of the arch to watch the sunset has a unique view. Walking towards the arch, you arrive at Pier 39, which many tourists consider to be the real Fisherman's Wharf, because it is home to the most attractive street performances, souvenir shops, restaurants, and more particularly, where sea lions gather to sunbathe. Sunbathing area. It is said that before the 1989 earthquake in San Francisco, sea lions had not yet appeared there. However, in early 1990, a group of sea lions suddenly occupied the K-Pier platform of Pier 39. The staff at the pier originally thought they were just visiting temporarily, but unexpectedly, as the months passed, the number of sea lions increased to more than 300. Due to media reports, it attracted many locals and tourists to watch, and gradually it became the most distinctive landscape of Fisherman's Wharf. I walked all the way to Pier 39, but I didn't see the sea lions yet. The sound of them greeting each other reached my ears. With such a noise, how could sea lions be so small? As expected, hundreds of sea lions lay densely on several decks, which was quite spectacular. Of course, I had to squeeze into the crowd and hold up my mobile phone to capture the beautiful scenery under the sunset and add it to my beautiful memory of San Francisco. When I come to Pier 39, I can't help but visit the souvenir shops and restaurants specially designed to make money from tourists. However, I have passed the age of spending money recklessly, especially for tourist souvenirs. So I will resolutely put an end to it and never waste a penny, 1 cent. Just as I was about to go back to the hotel, my husband called me and told me that his colleague said that there is a seafood restaurant called Skoma's near the pier with a long history and fresh and delicious food, so he made a reservation. So I didn't rush back to the hotel and continued to wander around. After my husband finished the meeting, we met at the restaurant to have dinner. Fortunately, I had time to wander around the restaurant, and I discovered a beach as beautiful and quiet as an oil painting. There were not even 10 people on the beach, including me. Looking out at the sea, there were several cruise ships moored not far away, surrounded by the blue sky. The white clouds contrast with each other and are so beautiful from every angle. How could I not take photos of those refreshing scenes? It turns out that this is the San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park. No wonder the cruise ship in the distance seems to be of some age. It may be a ship used for display. And fortunately, the dinner reservation at Skoma's was almost here. Otherwise, I would have liked to spend more time walking in the park. When we arrived at the restaurant, my husband was already waiting there. When we walked into the restaurant, within a moment we were sure that this was a restaurant run by an Italian family, because every waiter in the restaurant had bright hair, and their appearance. It immediately reminded me of the characters in the TV series The Sopranos. I'm not implying that they look like Italian gangsters, but the decoration in the restaurant and the staff are very Italian. Sure enough, a waiter who looked to be at least in his 70s came to take our order. He told us that he was an Italian immigrant. He came to the United States almost 50 years ago and has been working in this restaurant owned by a compatriot until now. The restaurant has hosted many celebrities, and the authentic Italian flavor they have always retained has earned the restaurant high praise. Their main dishes are so large that I couldn't even eat half of the spaghetti, but no matter how full I am, I can still eat them. It is absolutely impossible to miss their tiramisu. They did not disappoint me. This tiramisu was just the right amount of sweetness and moistness, which made me finish it thoroughly. There can be some leftover noodles, but no trace of miso. My husband's meeting was over, so the next day we could have had a leisurely rest in the hotel and did nothing. But my husband felt that since we were here and the work was done, we should make good use of these few hours during the day. As a serious tourist in San Francisco, if you want to travel around San Francisco in a few hours, you must rely on this kind of quick tour to hop up and down, hop on, hop off. Unexpectedly, we tourists from the Windy City fell into the wind. It turns out that the weather in San Francisco is much more unpredictable than in Chicago. The 4 seasons can change in one day. The masks originally used to block the new coronavirus were used by the two of us. Sitting on the upper deck of the bus and driving to the Golden Gate Bridge, this mask became a weapon for us to keep warm. The bus was speeding through the fog that suddenly drifted in, completely blocking the only sunlight that brought us warmth. It was like coming from the strong wind in Siberia made me dizzy. Fortunately, we were wearing a 95 mask so we could feel a little bit of warmth from our own breath. Oh well, it's a good thing I didn't eat butter garlic toast in the morning. Otherwise, I would have been so tired all the way. Sensitive noses will suffer. It turns out that riding up and down is like riding on a windmill. Who would have thought that we were careful to protect ourselves from being infected by the new coronavirus along the way, but I caught a cold because of the wind, alas. This did not fall in the new crown, but shed tears in the wind. Fortunately, the scenery along the way was very beautiful, and the tour guide on the car was also very dedicated. Every time he passed a scenic spot, he would always explain the illusions in detail. What I particularly like are the distinctive buildings on Haight Street, such as the Victorian Inn, the Victoria Peace Center, and the famous Jimi Hendrix House. They all have one thing in common. That is, the main color is red. In fact, the advantage of jumping up and down is that you can jump down at any time, but you have to wait for some time to jump up. After the two of us were shivering in the strong wind at the Golden Gate Bridge, we immediately jumped off the bus when it arrived at the Golden Gate Park stop. Golden Gate Park is simply a hidden emerald in San Francisco covering more than 1,000 acres. It is worthy of being the largest park in the United States. The park not only houses art museums, but also various gardens. This time we went to the Japanese tea garden. The design of the tea garden clearly has traces of traditional Japanese gardens, which fully embodies harmony, balance, and delicacy. It can be said that as long as I hold up my mobile phone, no matter from which angle, every time I press the button, a beautiful postcard will be born. The entire layout is perfect. The ponds, bridges, rocks, and sculptures in front of me have all turned into works of art. Anyway, my eyes were overwhelmed by the beauty. We also made a special trip to the tea house, and fortunately, the red bean mochi that I wanted to taste the most was sold out. However, I was sitting there sipping green tea and looking at the spring scenery in the courtyard. The world in front of me was so beautiful. At this time, a little squirrel appeared. I was attracted by the leftover udon eaten by my neighbor, and I had the audacity to jump on our table and pick his lunch. After visiting Golden Gate Park, it took some time to wait for the next bus at the entrance of the park for us to board. But this time we learned a lesson and no longer sat on the upper deck and let the wind blow. We sat obediently on the lower deck and sat all the way back to us. The starting point is Fisherman's Wharf, then return to the hotel to pick up your luggage and head to the airport. This is our first trip more than 3 years after the COVID-19 outbreak. We have been traveling from Hong Kong and Macau to San Francisco for almost a month. No matter how happy the journey is, it will have an end. I personally think that a good journey is about understanding what you see. You still have something to say, but you still have a heart that looks forward to going home, because in this way you can welcome the end of the journey with the lowest degree of disappointment, rush home with the greatest enthusiasm as possible, and reintegrate into the routine of daily life. In fact, another reason that makes me miss home is our baby. As soon as we landed, we rushed to pick up the dog. When he saw us, he was so excited that it was beyond words. He squirmed and jumped into our arms. As I hugged you, I seemed to be shouting excitedly, "Are you still alive? Are you finally thinking about going home? I miss you so much." How can such a welcome make us miss home?
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.